Don't adjust those dials, everybody. This one's a little bit different. Live stream tonight. Myself, no Chris, no Jake. Emac, how are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like as you were escaping the hurricane, I was escaping doing any shows. So this is kind of a reunion of sorts. We haven't been on air together in a couple weeks now.
I know. I'm excited. This is fun. I'm ready to go through this slate. I've turned my entire outlook around for today. I hated the idea of this slate when I woke up this morning. I didn't even really like it when I was doing the show with Jake. And now I'm like 100% in for it. I'm oddly confident.
All right. Well, let's break it down. We'll still go game by game here. Now, the fun thing is tonight, because there are just 7 games, and apparently they are freeing everybody up to watch this just amazing, dramatic score fest Thursday night football between, the New York Jets and Cleveland Browns. Wait a second. I demand a refund already.
This is going to be a really dumb question, I think. Are the Thursday night ratings normally good?
It's they used to be. They're not so much anymore. Same thing with Sunday night and Monday night, just because there are so many games. So they've all sort of cannibalized from each other, plus the cord cutting, plus the video on demand and binging and all the other stuff, and red zone. Because if you ever watch these single games, they're kind of boring.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of. Wouldn't it be interesting if the Browns just surprise started Baker Mayfield?
Yes, that would be
I'd love to see
fun.
what the ratings would do.
I think the in-game ratings would skyrocket.
Yeah.
And Twitter would probably break.
Right, it'd be crazy. And they totally should do that.
I signed and co-signed. I am in here. Now for fun, I'm feeling a little bit like you and Jake, because I am now doing some crunches and making my lineups.
There we go.
On air. I don't think I've actually been on air up till lock for a show since basketball last season.
Now that is a sport that I am desperately waiting for.
Oh, well, we do know that on next Friday, preseason will start, and then on the 16th of October, the regular season kicks off.
I'm so excited.
Now, who is your basketball team? Would it be the Hornets? I almost said
I do own like a lot of Hornets stuff now. I don't, and I guess I do cheer for them. I don't really have one. I've kind of appropriated the Mavs for the longest time. I was a big Dirk fan once he started. They're not really a great team to be liking in these past couple days. But yeah, I guess I would cheer for the Mavs more than anybody. I just cheer for good basketball. And now that DFS, I cheer for the things that make me money.
Now, have you had a chance to assimilate or discuss the fact that late swap is coming back in? Chat, don't worry. 7 games. We've got 50 minutes. Yeah. We'll get through all of them. It's going to be a pretty clear-cut slate here. Clear-cut at the top, frightening at the bottom. What do you think about late swap?
I will probably not be playing on DraftKings this year because of it.
And I've come full circle on it. I was sad that it was not there last year, and now I grew to enjoy it, to not have it. And I felt, once I understood, because I never knew before, because I was not a mass multi-entry player, and I, like the normal person, I was only using late swap to move out a player that was hurt or something like that, not realizing that it's better off to wait till the second 2/3 of the game start before your lineup even does, or even the last half of the night, because you want to focus on any breaking news that you can utilize to your advantage that's unexpected. Now, this doesn't happen or occur every night,
right?
But you can also see how games are going. If an early high scoring game, and God love the Hornets, but they've not been very many early high scoring games.
Yeah, not so much. Not so
and
much.
They seemingly are forever the 7:00 games, sometimes by themselves. But it's one of those where if a perceived high scoring game, Philly against a bad team when they were running the process, et cetera, was low scoring, and a ton of people were on it, then you could rearrange your lineup, et cetera, and utilize these things to your advantage. So I wish they would come up with something, and we'll pin our hopes on FanDuel, I guess, but come up with something similar to what draft does, where if your player is scratched, you can replace said player and not unlock everything else.
Sure.
like that happens. That I'm fine with. And I've played a ton more on draft because I feel basketball, the overlap is just so darn high. And I don't play a ton of lineups, and I just feel that mine tend to be a little more chalky. So, where's the fun in that unless you're going to do some sort of game stack type gambit and hope there's an overtime, which, yeah, there's seemingly an overtime at least 4 or 5 times a week. But amongst the many games that occur, you're probably not going to be on it. So,
oh, for sure. Yeah, I just
play just 1 or 2 lineups.
I'm hoping FanDuel doesn't touch it. And for me, it's just mostly I don't want to pay attention after the lineups lock. I don't want to have to go back and, essentially work 3+ more hours throughout the night. If late news bites me, it's never really bothered me all that much. I'm going to get the benefit from it just as much as I get the negative from it. So I just like when I'm done and when I get off this stream, like it's been a long day. I generally don't watch all that much or like sweat out games or anything. I just go and eat dinner with my wife and hang out. So I'm I'm just gonna happily not play on DK. Hopefully, otherwise, then I'm gonna end up having to stay up until 10:15, recrunching lines when I don't know somebody stupid in the West Coast sits out.
Yes, that is always the rough thing. All right, well, let's get into tonight's game here. We're just going to start off with the first one. That'll be the New York Mets, the Washington Nationals. We have a 7.5 over/under, which is the lowest on the slate tonight. Yeah. Of course, there is only one in double digits. Heck, there's only one over 9, and that's out there in Cleveland with Chicago, the White Sox, that is, taking on Cleveland. And we've got some interesting hitting perspectives across the entire DFS landscape. We only have a handful of pitchers in what we would call good spots.
Yeah.
And then we have some terrifying pitchers. So starting off with Max Scherzer, I am now setting my little crunch here. I am going to allow 80% Scherzer in my lineup. I am going to play with some 4-man and 2-man stacks. And I'm setting my four-player stack exposure to 30 because I'm just curious to see what happens. And I'm playing 96 lineups here. Do I sound like what you sound like or what Jake sounds like now?
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. It's fitting. It's fitting.
So the question amongst all of that is, what are you doing with Mr. Scherzer, who clearly is the top pitcher of the night? He has 277 strikeouts on the season. There is a chance he could get to 300 because we know he's got tonight, one more for sure start, and they could get him in on the last day of the season if they so choose because they still have a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs if, in fact, I think their next loss will actually eliminate them. But he has a chance to go for 300. There's, another Cy Young talk here, but he's 13,000, and there's really no good pitcher to pair him with. What is your exposure to Mr. Scherzer? What is your approach, having now talked with Laffy a little bit and Adam, etc.?
Yeah, it's almost entirely with the field. I have 48% right now. It's just 2% above what we were projecting. Similar story for me on FanDuel. And I think that I probably would have owned him significantly more, but I'm taking a stand on some of the hitting ownership that seems to be high that's going along with Scherzer. And by nerfing the Tigers and to a lesser extent the Rays, it's just not allowing me to have much more Scherzer. I just simply can't afford it. So I'm right there with the field. I'm happy with where I'm at right there. And I'm even happier because it's still giving me a lot of what I think are under-owned teams on the hitting side.
All right. So my crunch is in progress. It looks like it will cap me out at 80% Scherzer. It's throwing in some Yanni Chirinos. We're going to talk about him in a second, and then we'll see what my stacks are. So I'm curious to see because I didn't limit any particular team. So we'll have some fun with there. Now let's talk stacks. Let's talk the Nationals. We have Victor Robles, yet another talented outfielder that is coming up through the ranks. He will be leading off the season this evening. We have Juan Soto, the other youngster who has been phenomenal in lefty matchups. And then in between them, we've got Turner, Harper, and Rendon. Goodness gracious, what are you going to do here with the Nationals? Because with their price points, particularly on DK, I don't see them coming in as a full stack unless you forego Scherzer.
They are going to be coming in as a full stack quite a bit for me. They are my number 2 stack on FanDuel and my number 2 stack on DK. We're projecting 9% aggregate ownership on DraftKings. I have 16. Similar spread for me on FanDuel as well. I'm coming in significantly over the field. Lots of Robles in particular, especially on FanDuel where he's only 2,200. Insane. Like, that's just an insane price point for a guy hitting leadoff in a team with a 4.7 run implied total. I couldn't love it anymore. But yeah, I'm just loading up. Almost on the entire lineup. I don't have a ton of Juan Soto. He's the only guy that I'm not getting a lot of, so I hope he doesn't go too crazy.
Yeah, and that's the one. It's hard on short slates like this. There's just a ton of. No one is going to be sneaky,
No.
I think, and that's one of those little platitudes or sayings that I hate. Oh, this will be the sneaky stack, or this will be the sneaky pitcher. No, it'll just be like the single game NFL slates. It'll just be varying degrees of ownership. Yeah. Nobody is going to fly under the radar here if they have any note. Now, so for my first crunch, and now I'm trying to figure out who's in it. So I'm not as good with diving into the fantasy draft detail, or pardon me, the fantasy cruncher details as you guys. But I've got 30% national, so I'm assuming it's a bunch of the cheap guys. So I'm gonna go look at that. But I'm not capping stuff out. Sure. For people following along at home, where do you cap your stacks at?
So today, for my main stacks on DK, it would be 18%. And that's based on slate size, so it's different every day. And then I'm running 2-man mini stacks on both sites at 13%. The only changes that I've made today, and this is relatively new for my process, and it's something I probably should have been doing for a while, but I manually took down the stack percentages for the Tigers and the Rays. I didn't really have to touch the Rays. They were just not coming up in general, but just in case, I had to manually lower the Tigers. So I'm miles under the field there.
All right. Now, I discovered a little checkbox that usually I undo. Mine's counting my pitcher as part of a 4-man stack. So that's probably why the percentage is so high. So I'm going to run this one again, just because I'm curious to see here. And we've got time to play around, and, I'm riding 30 or 40 bucks here. So it's not that big of a deal if I muck this up somehow, but we shall see. But for his career, which of course is just this season, but it's 111 at bats, nearly a 400 WOBA and a 232 ISO against fellow lefties. That would be one Juan Soto here. He's going against Jason Vargas, who actually had a good matchup against the Nationals. I guess it was back in August. Feels like it was forever ago, but it was right around Labor Day, I believe. I just can't remember which side of the weekend that was on, where he did relatively well, going off memory here. But his fastball velocity on the season was about 86, 87 miles per hour. It's been down a couple ticks in his starts. I'm wondering if it's just kind of fatigue because he's gone here towards the end of the season, and Vargas is someone that's experienced injury issues from time to time here, and this would be a more taxing load. So I don't think I'm going to have very much Vargas. Looks like my stacks are done again here. I have actually 0 Vargas, so I'm rolling with nada here. Any leverage for you going against the Nationals, who likely will be a popular option, as you mentioned earlier?
No, I only have 1%. Oh, 2%, sorry. Vargas. Just not a spot that I need to go. And I probably could use a couple extra shekels by dropping down to that $4,600 price point, but I just went absolutely bonkers on someone else in the low end. So not going to a ton of Vargas. I'm just praying the Nats bust him up.
All right, that sounds good. Let's go on to the Red Sox Yankees. I'm bringing this one up because I'm actually crossing it off. I really don't want the hitters, and while I think the pitchers are both good, I really don't want to go with them. If I were going to be playing them, and let's see if my stack is playing them, I have 10% 4-man stack of the Yankees and no 4-man stacks of Boston, no 2-man stacks of Boston. I'm running 4-2-2 tonight. Okay. So it does not like that. Now, if I were going to play it, I would probably go with the Yankees hitters going against Rodriguez, but I feel that's where a lot of people are going to go. Conversely, if I was going to play the pitcher, Yeah, I actually would take Eduardo Rodríguez staring down the barrel of the mighty Aaron Judge, who is now back in the lineup. This lineup is really long now that they have McCutchen and Judge and Hicks and Stanton. I mean, goodness gracious. Gleyber Torres, who had a few turns batting fourth or fifth in various points this season, Josh, is now batting ninth. This
Yeah,
feels like a frightening lineup to go against. And we do know that Rodriguez, from time to time over his career, particularly 2 years ago and 3 years ago, had a little bit of a home run issue. Or I'm guessing you're looking more at hitters than pitchers in this one.
that would be accurate. I don't have any Tanaka, and I have just a couple shares of Eduardo Rodriguez. Hitting, on the other hand, is a different story.
Okay.
We have the Yankees coming in at 6% aggregate ownership. They are my number 4 stack on DK. I'm coming in at 15. So close to 3 times the field. A lot of that is Stanton, who I have at 38%. But I have a ton of McCutchen, a ton of Judge, a ton of Stanton, lots of Gary Sanchez. I want to bet on hitting talent in this game. Excellent park for home runs. I'm not particularly worried about Eduardo Rodriguez. And if the Yankees are going to be super low owned because of their price point and because of people going to the Tigers and making sure they have Scherzer, I will happily just bet on the Yanks bats. There's just too much natural power in this lineup.
All right. Fair enough. I concur with that, but I'm not playing it. I had a lot of Cody Reed here and a lot of Josh Tomlin. So now I'm tamping down I only ran to 60% for the rest of my pitchers here. I'm now tamping down, and this is something that I do with the Cruncher because I'm on my way to clearing the major milestone in DK achievements. I am 10,000 strikeouts away from 333,000 DraftKings crowns. So I should be getting that by Sunday. I should have that.
I should have been doing what you were doing.
We'll see. It's been a labor of love, but now I have all these points that you have to convert yourself into tickets.
Just as many $1 tickets as you can get.
But it's click.
Yeah, I cashed them in a while back for like $20 tickets just to max enter something stupid. And I was like, oh my God, like where's the bulk buy button?
Exactly. I wish and this is what FanDuel does, right? And Yahoo, they just have the option right on their screen. Hey, do you want to use your points to enter this contest? So we shall see. But I'm waiting for that screenshot of nearly 1.1 million points that I will be sitting on.
That's so insane.
So we shall see. All right, back to this evening's games, but just showing you a way you guys can get some value out there. There's still some time. If you haven't already, you can clear some of the lower level stuff. They are doing this for football. Football, you don't need the unique lineups. Baseball, all these count only with unique lineups. So if you run 100 lineups that are all the same and your guy hits a home run, that's one home run. If you run 100 lineups, lock in a guy, differentiate all the other lineups, and that guy locked in hits a home run, that's 100 home runs. So it's a lot of discipline to manage this many lineups, and especially if you try to do it prior to all the teams coming out, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it can be a little tricky. Football doesn't matter. You get all of them. You run 100 lineups identical. If somebody scores a touchdown, you get 100 touchdowns. Now the milestones are much, much higher. I figured it out that you need to run about, if you wanted to max out they want 150 million yards, you would need to run about 8,000 lineups a week. Now, you can do that across the different slates. They've got pick'ems. Anything counts. But 8,000 lineups is a lot. And even if you were playing them at $1, that'd be, $8,000. If you were playing them all in the quarter level, which you probably could come close to getting that many lineups down. If you played every single slate and in all the formats, you'd still need to play $2,000 a week. So I'm not doing it for football. For baseball, it was more doable. You play about $100, $150 a day, then you could get there. But again, it took all that time to manage all those.
Yeah, that's nuts.
So anyway, just throwing it out there. It felt like they drew up the gauntlet. I accepted. For NFL, I've already mapped it out. Nope, I'm good. I'll just take whatever I get. We'll go from there.
Yeah, but back 8,000 lineups over the course of a weekend is that's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, but they can all be the same. So it's just 8,000 entries.
Sure, that's still a lot of entries too.
Oh yes. Oh, yes. So I don't want to do that. So let's talk about one of my guys that I would like to go. That I said I wasn't going to call out for sneaky pitchers. Here's somebody that could go slightly overlooked. It would be Yonny Chirinos, who is slated in theory. Now, we have seen the Rays change their minds a couple times this season, but he is slated in theory to come in after Ryan Stanek. He will be going against the Toronto Blue Jays. I like him as, I don't know that contrarian is the word, but I like him a little bit to be maybe a third of the ownership of one Cody Reed, potentially Sam Gaviglio, who's in this game, or Jeff Brigham. So we'll talk about those guys in the upcoming game here. Are you doing anything with Chirinos or Gaviglio as your SP2?
You mentioned Chirinos at a third of the ownership to Cody Reed. That is actually exactly where I have him in my own personal exposures.
Oh, I don't have the Osmo page up. I got to tout the brand here.
However, my personal exposure on Yonny Chirinos is 22. I have a lot of Yonny Chirinos, and if anybody else is doing the math, I have a real lot of Cody Reed. But yeah, I'm all over Chirinos today. Have to be.
I think that's the
Gaviglio, not so much.
I think that's the way to go. Gaviglio makes me nervous because he's not as good against lefties, and we know Tampa Bay has the ability to pivot righties or lefties as they deem fit. So we've got Malik Smith, Yi-Man Choi, Joey Wendell, Brandon Lau, Kevin Kiermaier, Jacob Bowers, who's come back to earth but still hits for extreme power, and then Nick, our buddy Nick Ciuffo there. That's
Nick
a lot of lefties. I've got to wave Gaviglio off, and he was a placeholder guy for me last night.
Yeah, I thought I would end up with more of him. It just changed throughout the day and just based on construction. But I have 8%, so I'm not too far under the field, but I'm much more interested in the other guys in his price range.
All right. I'm just looking here to see what cheap catchers we can get. Matt Wieters is looking cheap because I'm going to goose Nicky C here just a little bit, because I think that will help me get back to the Scherzer look that I wanted to do.
Roberto Perez at the lowest salary, but he's got some ownership.
Really, let's see. I'm looking at our handy dandy FanVice projections that are now here with Osmo. He is, oh goodness, he's actually, it's because they're all smushed together. I'll goose him a little bit as well. But he doesn't have any power. At least Nicky C hit a home run for me one day, or at least a double. So I've got fond memories of that. Now, so I don't mind the Tampa Bay stack coming here. And this is kind of a fun show because we're talking a little bit more about approaches and stacks. Where are you on your ownership for Tampa Bay with all of those lefties? Are they checking in anywhere for you?
Almost non-existent, and it's a twofold reason. So we have them projected right now as the chalkiest stack on DraftKings. And I just can't get behind that. But they also weren't really popping up for me that much this morning. I was getting the Tigers. I had to manually adjust them. But the Rays weren't really a team that I was going to anyway. So I have only 1% aggregate on DraftKings. It's basically one or two lines. And on FanDuel, I have a slight bit more than that at 3% aggregate. But we're projecting 12 and 14 across both sites. So I'm coming in miles and miles away from the field here.
All right. Looks like I'm going to end up with about 10% of my four-man stacks are going to be on the Rays. And I'm going to let that go because I'm hoping it's putting in a bunch of the lefties. On the other side here, are you doing anything with Toronto? I mean, we do like Billy McKinney leading off, and that's a fine price point. He's going to get the opener, which Ryan Stanek is a good pitcher, but he'll see him once.
Yeah.
And then he's going to see Chirinos, who's pretty good, but he's going to have the platoon advantage for both these guys. That's the one thing you got to watch out for when they have these openers and then the second guy's coming in, because sometimes the teams will get a little they'll have the pitching hands flipped to maximize the disruption that they're going to cause for the other team. We're not seeing that. Justin Smoke slumping somewhat, prices back down a little bit, but he does have some pop. And then Randall Grichuk, who mucked up his face a little bit, but he is back and he just smokes righties. He's batting cleanup. Why is he batting cleanup? Well, because the remainder of the lineup is Rowdy Tellez, Kevin Pillar, Aledmys Diaz, Danny Jansen, and Richard Urena. So that's promoted Grichuk, who usually bats seventh, all the way up to the cleanup spot.
Yeah.
Did any of the Toronto guys make it in your lineups?
just sparingly. I do have a few stacks of them on both sites, but I'm quite a bit under the field, and they're not particularly owned to begin with. So just little bits of the top 4 guys, mostly.
All right.
And I have like a soft spot in my heart for Danny Jansen on DK, so I do have one line with him.
Okay, but that's fair. We can have our friends in our lineups from time to time. It is okay. It is acceptable. Looks like 40% Cody Reed is going to be there for me. Let's talk about Cody Reed. Let's talk about the Marlins, the Reds. 8.5 over under here, which we usually don't see runs necessarily that high in Miami. Well, unless the pitching is that bad. So we've got Cody Reed and Jeff Brigham. Brigham, do you remember what college he goes to or went to?
Are you going to tell me wherever you went to college?
That's right.
Washington?
University of Washington.
Yeah. I didn't know if this was going to be some backwards joke where he went to BYU or something.
No, we did this before.
Oh my God. Yeah, we did. I totally forgot.
Way back in the day. See, it's been a while since we've done a show. But in any event, Brigham is up. He has been experiencing a less than stellar strikeout rate. But he is someone that, I missed out listening to what Adam said and didn't have a chance to read his article, but I'm guessing Adam was saying that the potential pivot off Cody Reed would be Brigham in this game, because the only thing Cody Reed has going for him really, well, other than facing the Marlins, is he had a double-digit strikeout game. Prior to that, a whole lot of meh. So people I think, might be getting some stars in their eyes here, and who knows what's going to happen. A likely Cody Reed line for me, I'd probably be happy with 11 points tonight.
11 points. I have him projected for quite a bit more than that.
Okay, set me straight then with the vaunted Josh Engelman projections here.
I'm not so sure that I can set you straight. It's not as if I'm doing backflips over this particular decision, but I have more than double the field of Cody Reed today. I have 62% Cody Reed.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Well, I'm running 41%. So it's ride or die tonight. For me, it's, for those counting at home, it's just Scherzer, Boyd, Tomlin is coming in at 10%. I think I'll just let that go. And Chirinos will be at around 25 with Scherzer up at 80. So that's where I'm.
Lorenzo, what's going on? 3.7 run implied total, super interesting to me. I tend to not look at as much season-long stats at this point, just because of how different they can be and how different of a team they can be. But the Marlins have a 348 slugging against lefties this year and a 120 ISO. They have an 81 weighted runs created plus, below average hard hit percentage. For the entire season, they've just been really, really bad against left-handed pitching. And I know they're different, but I'm in for that. 8.4K per 9 projection via Steamer. That's good enough for me. If he can go, I've got him projected for 15.9. If I get that, I couldn't be happier.
All right. I'm now riding with my final crunch here, so we'll talk about that in a second. If you were going to, Jeff Brigham, I'm sorry, I'm assuming no Jeff Brigham for you, or very little?
I have 11%.
Okay, so I would still think that's kind of very little. Scooter Gennett kind of pops a little bit for me. People haven't been playing him a ton lately. He's dramatically cooled off. Remember, first couple months of the season, from about week 3 through week 10, he was close to a $5,000 player.
I have quite a bit of Scooter.
You have to tonight.
Yeah.
He's batting cleanup. He's going against the guy that, if I remember correctly, Brigham does a little bit more of the curve and change up. Again, the only reason I'm remembering this potentially is because University of Washington, so I was poking around trying to see if he was going to be the next Tim Lincecum. He's not. Don't worry about that.
No, he's not.
But I do recall Gennett actually being decent against those pitches, because I'm a Scooter Gennett fan, particularly after that 4 home run game last season or 2 seasons ago. So I do like that. I don't think I have any Scoots Magoots, as Laffy likes to refer to him. Where are you with your Scooter Gennett love?
I am double the field on Scooter right now, and double the field on the Reds. So I've got quite a bit of Schebler, quite a bit of Joey Votto, 20% Eugenio Suarez. I have a lot of Tucker Barnhart, Mason Williams. I'm loading up on the Reds. It's just another spot that I'm able to go with decent pricing that still gets a team in there with Scherzer.
I have nary a lineup with Scooter in it.
Ooh,
Very interesting.
you'll
Very
regret that one.
I've got a ton of Asdrubal Cabrera. That is one I am regretting, and that game hasn't even started. So why don't I bump him down a little bit here? I'll goose Scooter up to about the same projection as him. So this is the way you can hard code and trick your crunches into doing what you want here towards the end. For those of you that are at home, reminder: we do have the Fantasy Cruncher add-on here at awesemo.com. You're going to want to check that out. The other thing you're going to want to check out: single game football tonight. That would be the primetime slate. Got a free article there written by yours truly, breaking down, oh good God, the defensive struggles that we will be watching this evening. 2 defenses, 2 kickers, and then pick your offensive player of choice. Could be one way to approach this slate. We shall see. So anyway, we've got some people that are very good here with the old Fantasy Cruncher. We're doing some shows in the mornings, going into them, the strategy shows, the process shows, if you will. So there are plenty of ways to look at stuff, and there'll be more time. And Josh and Adam is using it a lot now. Laffy, they can explain a lot of this to you guys. Then anything else you want to talk about with the Reds Marlins before we head on to our next game?
No, I don't think so. Just let's go Cody Reed.
All right. Cody Reed, fingers crossed, buddy. Let's see what you can do. The Royals, the Tigers, Jorge Lopez, near no-hitter 2 starts ago, fell off the face of the earth in his last start. That's okay because, hey, he's a youngster. He's got a decent matchup here going against the 4A squad that is also known as the Detroit Tigers. I think Victor Martínez has done one last glorious cycle in the hopes to get a couple more home runs on his career totals. I am not being facetious here. Did you see his 2 home run game? And he has announced his retirement. There are 10 days left of Major League Baseball. I don't think he's going to have to worry about the urine analysis here. So if you want to say a fond farewell to the former lifetime catcher at FanDuel, at least up until last season, even though he hadn't played catcher for years. Now's your chance to do it. But goodness gracious, Lopez has to be on the mix or in your mix a little bit. You've got Christian Stewart, Nick Castellanos, Martinez, Aducci, Rodriguez, Greiner, Lugo, Cosmo. None of these guys are frightening outside of Castellanos. Kristen Stewart is an interesting actress. She's been in the Twilight series. I never watched any of those, but I did see her in American Ultra. I don't know a lot about Kristen Stewart, the ball player, but he is one of their higher level prospects there for the Tigers. Is he coming up in your lineups here, or is Lopez winning this battle of the numbers for you?
I saw the first Twilight, not on purpose.
My wife's read all of them and watched all of them. This is the only thing I know. Are you Team Edward or are you Team Jacob? And I don't remember which one's the vampire and which one's the werewolf.
I'm Team never watching those movies again. Once he started bouncing around the trees covered in glitter and stuff, I was good. I had to watch that so that my wife would, which was my girlfriend at the time, so she would watch Lost with me, and then she just got totally into Lost, and we determined that I did not have to watch any more of the Twilight series. I did really enjoy her in American Ultra, though, and I like her in Into the Wild.
Oh, thank you. That was yeah. That's a good movie. For any of you that haven't watched a movie, it'll mess with your head a little bit, but in a good way. It just puts a lot of thought out there. But it's about this young kid who went on a bit of a walkabout, if you will borrow the Australian term, around America, and exploring various spots, Canada, Alaska, Mexico, etc. Very interesting. Very interesting book as well as a movie. Anyway, back to this here. Save me from myself. What do you got here with Jorge Lopez? Matt Boyd is probably going to be the number 3 most popular pitcher tonight, maybe 4th because of pricing, but behind Scherzer, Reed, Chirinos, or another cheap guy, and then Boyd would be my guess. Where are you coming in with these 2 guys?
Ooh, Dana Forden in chat. Adventureland. Yeah, forgot about Adventureland. Another good Kristen Stewart movie. Anyway, I am miles and miles and miles under the Tigers on DK. They are the second chalkiest stack, and again, they are the natural pairing for the public with Max Scherzer, and I just don't see the Tigers being a team that should have 13% aggregate ownership. So I only have 4 on DraftKings. I have a little bit more of them on FanDuel, and it's just more of a pricing thing there where they have 4 guys at minimum salary, 2 guys at $2,200. I don't mind working them in as much there. I can get a little bit more unique on FanDuel and stacking on FanDuel is a little bit more important. So I do have some Kristen Stewart on FanDuel, but I'm under the field on almost everyone except for noted slugger Víctor Martínez.
All right. Thank you. I knew I had seen her in at least one other film, Adventureland. That's the Woody Allen, or no, Woody Harrelson movie about the vampires.
No. Adventureland is a movie with Jesse Eisenberg at a theme park. It's like a coming of age tale for those two, and
Zombieland.
Ryan Reynolds. Oh yeah,
they both came out in 2009. Jesse Eisenberg is in both of them.
Yeah, that's very true. Two corner in the market on land movies.
So there's my crossover. It's Jesse. It's not Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
Oh, good God. My inner 14-year-old girl needs to go back and write in her diary or something. All right, let's get back to the games here. We've got a couple left. The White Sox, the Indians are one, and then Phillies and the Braves are the other. With regard to the White Sox and Indians here, I have, as I mentioned, a tiny bit of Josh Tomlin. I think he's popping just because the White Sox have been so bad. I've capped him at 10%. I'm just going to let it ride. He's kind of my pivoting cheaper pitcher away from Cody Reed for this one here. However, please note, go look at his game logs. They're terrifying. It's because he's got a horrible fly ball home run rate. And that can be a definite problem when you're going against a team like the White Sox. The other thing Josh Tomlin doesn't do is strike batters out.
No,
so that could be a recipe for disaster here. But I'm just going to let that go as a little bit of my swerve away from ending up with 60-70% of Cody Reed, because I'm letting these caps just ride high this evening.
I'm with you on the Tomlin ownership. I have 11%. A lot of that just has to do with the potential for the White Sox to even make Josh Tomlin look like a guy that can miss bats. Yes. I don't really have him on FanDuel. And I do have a ton of White Sox on FanDuel. I have Daniel Palka 41% of the time on FanDuel. I have those top four guys, Moncada, Sanchez, Palka, and Garcia in 20+%. So I'm loading up quite a bit on the White Sox on FanDuel. I think that they're a really nice play. I do have some on DK. I wish I had more. They're at 7% aggregate ownership, and I'm only at half of that. That's making me a little nervous. I feel like I should have a bit more, but I think that I can be okay there.
They've been priced to face Josh Tomlin on DK. I mean, Palka is, I have 2%. He's 4,900. I'm not even going to fight with the projection.
2,900 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DK.
Yes,
he's probably my favorite play of the slate.
Yeah,
on FanDuel.
I think that is a reasonable way to go. So I'm ending up over here with 30% on my final 4-man stacks. I've got 30% Nationals, 30% White Sox or Cleveland, and 24% Tampa Bay. So I believe the Tampa Bay one might be a little bit chalky. I'm hoping I have some of the bottom of the order guys. I can already tell I've got some of the bottom of the order guys there for Cleveland, or I should say the cheaper guys, as well as for Washington. I've got a lot of Adrian Sanchez, who's making things work here at second base. I'm okay with that because 80% Scherzer. I'm gonna have to. You can only squeeze the balloon so many ways. But you're going to have some spots that you don't like. So that's where I'm ending up for my final crunches here. Back to Cleveland. What is the field on for the overall Cleveland stack?
So Cleveland is a very popular stack on both sites. They are like 4th or so on FanDuel. I believe they're 3rd on DK. So public is on them just sort of in general. Lindor, Ramirez, Encarnacion, Melky Cabrera on DK, Roberto Perez on DK, and I'm blowing the field out of the water. They're my number one stack on both sites. 18% aggregate for me on FanDuel, 10% is the projection, 18% aggregate for me on DraftKings, 13% is the projected ownership. They're the best team in the best spot, 5.8 run implied total, significantly higher than any other team on the slate. They're the place that I want to eat the chalk when it comes to bats today.
All right. And I think I'm fine with that. This is one of those slates, and you know, it changes. To me, this almost feels like one of those 4-game slates where you're just like, I'm going heavy on these teams. I'm hoping I get the right double combination of the people that are hitting home runs. It feels like I'm doing that here, but I'm doing that with pitchers from like 4 teams.
Yeah.
And then hitters from 4 teams. So
I'm looking at it like this. The Indians have the highest implied total, 5.8 runs. I think the next closest is going to be like 4.7, 4.8. So like a full run higher than any other team. But I'm already still just with the field on Max Scherzer. And I'm choosing to be higher on the team with the highest upside on the slate instead of being high on teams like the Tigers. And that just seems like a really natural place for me to want to be. If the Indians and the Tigers are both going to be chalky, I'm going to fade the team that I think stinks, and that's the Tigers. And that's how it's working out for me today.
All right, let's continue on. Final game of the night, the Hammer, the 7:35 Hammer, which will be starting around the time I'm done with dinner, so not much of a late night Hammer tonight. That's okay. We're going to make some single game NFL contests. Speaking of NFL contests, shortly we do have one Laffy D coming up, anchoring 3 fellas talking football. That will be with Jazz Raz, Ben Araza, and Andrew Barron, also known as Hot Magic. Andrew Barron is the master behind the projections here that we utilize for the scoring. Awesemo, Alex, he's got the ownership projections for you. But the ones tagged and branded as the fan vice projections, those indeed are from Andrew. So you'll want to tune in because you can ask them questions. They're going to break down that Thursday game, and then they're going to get into the rest of the week. And it's a good time. You can reach out to them in the Slack chat if you want to get answered immediately, or, of course, the Yahoo chat, because it will be in front of the paywall. You know what should be in front of the paywall and free? Vincent Velasquez. VV. Kind of think of him as the Fang, because, you know, if you type VV, it looks like I don't know, like rattlesnakes.
Yeah, I get it.
Fang. I don't know. It's the crazy things you do when you've written thousands of articles to keep yourself sane. He has not gone past the 5th inning in, 12 of his last 13 starts. His last couple starts, 2 innings, 4 innings, 5 innings, 5 innings, 4 innings, 2 in the third, 4, 6 in the third, 5. And it's not, I don't know that there's a lot of rhyme nor reason. Now, he's been getting dinged up a little bit here. The last outing, he only lasted 46 pitches. He faced 10 batters, but he gave up 4 earned runs. 1 ground ball out. That's it. No fly ball outs, but he had 4 strikeouts. Good God. Well, hey, he did strike out Miami, but yeah, I don't want any part of Vincent here going against the Braves. There's no great stand here. The guy who Cruncher didn't put into my lineups, and I'm okay with it. I've got, I think, 8 or 10%, is Kevin Gausman. Now, he is someone that has benefited from moving over to the National League, not having to face the AL East constantly, not having to pitch in Camden Yards, and having the bonus of facing the pitcher instead of a DH. But his strikeout rate has not matched his very nice ERA since he's moved over to the senior circuit. Where did Gausman end up in your final crunch?
I'm basically neutral on Gausman. I have 18%. We're projecting 21. So like I'm just in that neighborhood. And I'm similarly not on Velasquez at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to go there. And I don't think most people will. He's one of the people I just took out of my player pool. I said, not going to get any. 4% Gausman is where I landed for me. And so that's just nominal. I'm not going to chase him out of there just because. But I have 6 total owned pitchers across my 96 lineups, 80% Scherzer, 25% Boyd, 41% Reed, 10% Josh Tomlin, 4% Gausman, and then 40% Chirinos. Now, again, I'm just leaving those last 2 guys in. For me, it's not just to have a share of them. It's I don't want to muck up whatever my hitters are doing because we're this close to lock. And I like the fact that I've got 4-man stacks, 30% on the Nationals and 30% on Cleveland. So
yeah, I mean, those are they're my top 2 owned stacks. So I'm right there with you.
We're going to Ricky Bobby this thing tonight. Which normally I don't go quite as extreme. I will make various stands, but I'll not both on hitters and pitchers in the same night. Either I'm playing a variety of hitters and I've got 6 pitchers I'm in on, or I've got 4 stacks I'm focused on and about 8 to 10 pitchers. But that's not out tonight, so we shall see. Let's see. We've got a couple more minutes here. What was your most intriguing or surprising thing that came out of your crunch tonight? Because now that I've gotten more and more automated with this stuff, there's always something, particularly if you're utilizing projections, that is not what you would have expected. And I do, even when I'm hand building my lineups on Yahoo, pardon me, hand entering them, I still will build them in the cruncher, because oftentimes you will find players coming into your lineups, especially if you're playing on multiple sites, that you didn't realize where they were worth pricing. Daniel Palka is the perfect example on DraftKings and FanDuel tonight.
Yeah.
49 on DK, you said 29 on FanDuel. You may miss those guys because you're not scrolling all the way through the player pool. So I do like to use the Cruncher add-on here. Shout out for having that here at awesemo.com. It is an add-on to your subscription, but you can test it out for the time being. What was your surprise tonight?
My biggest surprise was definitely getting such a small amount of raise before I even started making tweaks. It kind of shocked me that they came out as a top 2 chalk team, and I didn't even really have to touch them. They just weren't coming up for me. But if I looked at them manually, like when I went through everything, I liked the idea of having some of these lefties against the righty Gaviglio. The run total was fine. They've been fine against righties all year. Like, everything looked okay to me. They just never showed up. So I took that as a sign that they weren't meant to be there from like a construction standpoint, and I kept that low ownership down.
All right, I don't know if we can put the links in the Yahoo chat. I think it kills the links. But someone was asking me, how do I see the NFL football achievements and where you stand? If you're on the desktop, I'm not sure how to see it on the phone, but if you're on the desktop, you go up to the top. There's the far right, kind of the middle of the screen, says promos. If you highlight that, you can see a variety of different things, the free contests you can enter that are promoted by the movies or the food places, etc., Papa John's and Venom and all that fun stuff. But if you look at the very top, they have fantasy football achievements. I'll drop the actual link in the Slack chat here, but that's where you can go log in. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to your page, and it'll tell you how many you have.
There you go.
Each of the things. But the baseball one's there, a variety of other things. So fun spot to look there. If anybody has any questions, we'll get to those real quick here. Let's see. Scrolling up, Turner or Lindor? That's a good one. Turner, not as good against lefties, but hey, the systematic issues with the Mets not being able to prevent base runners go in his favor. Lindor, nice little matchup there, going against James Shields. I think I would go Turner because I think more people are going to be on the Indians.
So I think it's hard to compare the two. They're separated by $1,100 on DraftKings. I have the exact same amount of both, but I think Lindor is the better play, at least on DK. On FanDuel, I think Lindor is very clearly the better play. I have him projected significantly higher, and I have twice the exposure to Lindor. I have 46% Francisco Lindor on FanDuel today.
That would be a lot. That would be significant, as they say. This one's for Zach Carpenter. Oh, good God. We have Zach Attack in the lobby here. We've got Zach Jameson, Zach Carpenter. This is for Carpenter. Eugenio Suarez or Scoots Magoots, DK?
I have more Suarez. I have Suarez projected slightly higher, so I guess my answer would be Suarez.
All right, let's see. Suarez, I would lean towards Scooter Gennett. Obviously, they're teammates. They're separated by $100. One's batting fourth, one's batting fifth. I'm going with Scoots because he does have the platoon advantage. If it was a lefty, I would reverse that answer. I would go with Eugenio Suarez on there. But tonight for me, Scoots Magoots, ride or die. And I don't have him in a single lineup. But if I was not allowing mechanics to take over, machines running the world, Skynet ruling the day, I'd have more Scoots Magoots. Would you go with Ryan Zimmerman or Yi-Min Choi?
I mean, it has to be Zimmerman for me since I'm essentially not playing Choi. I have 13% Zimmerman on DraftKings, and I have 0% Choi. So I have to answer Zimmerman. But I will say that on an individual basis, I think Choi grades out pretty well. They have the exact same projection in my model. Choi just slightly higher ownership. So I don't have a problem at all with Choi. I'm just avoiding Ray's stacks.
Okay. And yes, we do have to make a stand from time to time. Even the mass multi-entry guys who like to take a little blend of everything, a little piece here, a little piece there. That's okay. We like that. Oh, Seth, with one of my favorite questions. I'm gonna read the question, but this is up to you, Josh, and then I will explain what it means. Yonder Alonso or Clark Kent?
So who's Superman?
Well, Superman would be the answer, but Yonder Alonso is amazing. And we used to do a joke a couple sites ago, back when I was on this site called Roto Grinders. It's okay. We're not afraid to say their name. They may not say ours, but we will say theirs. The joke always was...
They'll say our name.
Oh, good.
I'm getting cocky.
As in, damn you, Osimo, damn you. But the joke always was that I would get two players and I would always pick Yonder Alonso, no matter who the two players were. And Alonso was never a choice. So when he went over, I guess it was last year or 2 years ago when he went to Oakland and the fly ball revolution took over and he was hitting all those home runs. That was the season after I had started doing that. And everybody thought I was the whisperer for Yonder Alonso, so it was a fun little joke. But
I've always been a very big Yonder Alonso fan.
I have as well. It was a nice magical moment where he didn't do very much for the Mariners there, my team amongst my heart. But I do like him a ton, and he is someone that I default to playing more often than not over Edwin Encarnación. So we shall see. Pham or Malik Smith on DraftKings?
Oh, God.
I'm good against righties, but this is one righty I don't know that I want to tangle with. Malik Smith gets the platoon advantage. I'm gonna lean Malik Smith.
Yeah, I would prefer Malik Smith as well. I have Smith at 0.4 of a point higher, but I just like the idea of the potential extra plate appearances. Malik Smith leading off, Pham in the 4-hole.
All right, here's a good question and 3 minutes to lock for those of you that are getting caught watching the paint dry here. This is from Dana Forden. They say that Josh mentioned a team's upside earlier. If two teams have similar implied totals, what are you looking at to determine which team in your mind would have the higher upside? While you think about that, I'm gonna answer it for me.
Sure.
I would think the team that you can get the most adjacent players that are advantageous for your stack, that would be upside 1. Pricing for me would be upside 2. Ownership or the lack thereof would be, I don't know that that's upside. That would be decision point 3. Do you look at more numbers related stuff for that, Josh?
Yeah, so I think ownership would be the first place that I would go. I don't pay too much attention to a specific run implied total unless there's an outlier. Like the Indians today are an outlier. If the Indians just weren't on this slate, then everybody else at the top is bunched in like the 4.45, 4.6, 4.7 area. So I would be making a play on ownership in that regard. So like if all of those 4.7-ish teams were in the same sort of spot and one of them was projected to have like 14% aggregate ownership and another was projected to have 2, I would probably end up on the 2 side just to leverage the field.
All right. 1 minute left. Oh, we got to do home run calls since this is like my 4th ever Awesemo show here. Or maybe it's my 5th. So we're going to do home run calls. I did get one my first night. We made a call the second night. I didn't get it, and then I've forgotten the other.
I don't ever get it anymore. I've been garbage lately, so I need a good luck charm here.
Yonder Alonso will be my guy. Yonder Alonso
coming in 19th in my model today.
Okay. And your selection, just so I control you?
I have to do it because I went so heavy on FanDuel. I would like Daniel Palka.
Okay. That we will allow that. Yes, I thought Zach, who brought up Zach, I thought that's where he was going to go. So we have had Zach Carter before we had Zach Jameson. Now he's the one that pointed out Alonso was drafted by the Reds. He could not move Joey Votto, future Hall of Famer, aside, but he did have that amazing platoon advantage in 400, 200 ISO or WOBA ISO back when he was a part-time player. That was just phenomenal in the Great American Small Park. He said you should have taken Scoots Magoots, which is what I thought you were going to do, since I don't have a single player. Or a single.
If you were Chris, I probably would have done it.
Okay. All All right.
I do make a lot of troll picks to Chris.
Fair enough. All right, well, we are going to dip on out of here. Reminder, we got the single game slate. We've got 3 fellas talking footballs coming up next. Josh, hopefully you can set the producer button here, get these guys on autopilot, and go have some dinner, because you have deserved it after having a hand in literally every show thus far that has been on awesemo.com.
I'll be sitting here listening and sweating games. My wife is at a local watering hole, but not just for the cocktails. She is taking a bunch of supplies to the people that need it for the hurricane.
Excellent. Well, good on you guys for supporting the local peeps. And for anybody out there, a lot of the little websites we frequent have a little donate button. Flip them $5, flip them $10. That's what PayPal's for. Yeah. Karma will come back to help you out here at some point. Last reminder, hey, here's the karma right now. Free article for the next 3 primetime slate games will be on awesemo.com's homepage. Article 1 is already up there tonight. You can click on it. It says NFL primetime games, week 3 Thursday night football, written by yours truly, a breakdown of the game and then a ranking of the just so happened to be the top 20 options, in my opinion, for this one. The next game will probably have a little bit more because it's Detroit and the Patriots, but I had to search high and low. The one strategy tip that I do want to say tonight, you are going to want to get the touchdowns. Now, of course, you want to get the touchdowns always, but I don't think there are going to be more than 4, 5 at the very most tonight. So if you can figure out a way to corral those, you will be better off than a lot of the players. I would go with a couple obvious and then a couple off the board plays. Read that free article. You'll see who I'm looking at. But play one of the defenses for sure tonight. And I don't hate playing both of them. Any final thoughts before you get us on out of here, John?
Yeah, I hope the Tigers and the Rays are terrible.
There is always a chance. The Tigers, at least, there's a chance. The Rays always seemingly have 9 lives. I think they've used 8.5 of them. So maybe they'll use that last half.
Yeah, maybe. Bye, everybody.